Discover the incredible journey. How just 1,000 unveiled a life-changing subway empire. Jake stood in the shadow of a decaying warehouse, his heart pounding. Just months ago, he had served in a world full of camaraderie and shared purpose. Now, he felt the crushing weight of his unpaid bills and the fading dreams of his neighborhood. The last of his savings, a mere 1,000, was all he had left to cling to. The thought of letting his children down gnawed at him, so he pressed on, aimlessly wandering through the crumbling corridors until something caught his eye in a dark corner. An old subway cart sat, dust-covered and forgotten. It was a relic of the city's past, a bright yellow beacon in a sea of gray. As he stepped closer, memories flooded back, the laughter of his children echoing in his mind. An idea sparked within him like a match struck in darkness. If he could transform this cart into a sandwich shop, maybe he could bring life back to this neglected area. Maybe he could create a place for his kids, a future beyond survival. Shaking off skepticism, Jake rallied his determination. He envisioned a vibrant spot filled with flavors and laughter, a landmark for the community. A place where families could gather instead of drift apart like fallen leaves. Of course, his neighbors didn't share his vision. They exchanged skeptical glances as he rolled up his sleeves, obscured by doubt and their naysaying. Yet, he pushed through the backroom dealings and competition of established businesses. He was no stranger to battle. After all, he was still a soldier at heart. Home was no refuge either. Bills piled up on the table, and the stress was palpable. Jake felt it in his chest as he watched his children, their innocent faces illuminated by dim light, dreaming of the impossible. Meanwhile, whispers of his estranged brother's success echoed in his mind, a sharp reminder of family strife. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The day of the community festival arrived, an event Jake hoped would be the grand opening for his sandwich shop. He could feel a collective buzz around him, thick with excitement. But amidst the laughter and chatter, Jake felt the weight of expectations heavy on his shoulders. Would they really support him? Seeing his brother in the crowd, a mixture of disdain and concern in his eyes, sent a ripple of emotion crashing through him. "What are you doing, Jake?" his brother urged, no longer the unwavering support he once had. The confrontation opened old wounds and bruised pride. But then, a little voice broke through the noise. His daughter, grasping his hand, whispered, "Daddy, please." It was a moment of clarity, a plea wrapped in innocent love. Then, as hope and goodwill began to swirl around him, an announcement from the city sounded, devastating news that threatened to extinguish everything he had worked for. Jake thought of his dreams, his children, and the brother he longed to reconnect with. Would fear win out over love? Would the community rally to support him, or would he stand alone among the ashes of doubt? The sound of the announcement echoed through the festival, drowning out the joyful laughter and vibrant music that filled the air just moments before. Jake's heart dropped as the city representative announced budget cuts that would affect local businesses, including a halt on permits for new ventures like his sandwich shop. Panic rushed over him, and he instinctively searched the crowd for support but found only disappointed faces. Uncertainty etched in their brows. His daughter squeezed his hand tighter, oblivious to the weight of adult worries. She looked up at him with wide eyes, searching for signs of reassurance. "Daddy, it'll be okay, right?" Her voice was soft, but the sincerity pierced through the storm swirling in Jake's mind. He forced a smile, but the uncertainty gnawed at his insides. Around him, the mood shifted like dark clouds swallowing the sun. Neighbors who had earlier smiled at him now chatted in hushed tones, sharing whispers that carried doubt and fear. He could feel their skepticism like a shadow growing larger. Would they turn away now when he needed them most? Jake inhaled deeply, trying to steady the tremor in his hands. Memories rushed in of the time he spent with his children at festivals just like this one, of laughter shared, and dreams built together. This dream began as just a flicker of hope, yet it was a light he couldn't let extinguish. Before he could second-guess himself, he climbed onto a makeshift platform built for community announcements, gripping the edges tightly until his knuckles turned white. "Everyone, please!" His voice rang out, shaky at first, but growing steadier with each word. The crowd quieted, a wave of anticipation crashing over them. "I know we're facing hard times. I know you're all worried. But this community is stronger than any budget cut." His heart raced as he continued to speak, passion spilling from him. He painted a picture of a bustling spot filled with delicious sandwiches, laughter, and connection, a place where neighbors gathered to share stories over lunch, families reunited after long days. "We have the power to breathe life back into this neighborhood." In that moment, he felt something transformative, an unseen thread connecting each of them. He could see it in their eyes, reflective sparks of hope igniting. The murmurings of doubt began to fade, replaced by whispers of encouragement. But then, amidst the sea of faces, he noticed his brother, crossing his arms, his expression unreadable. Their eyes locked, and the tension sparked again. "You're grasping at straws, Jake," he finally muttered, shaking his head. "You can't just will this to happen." Every inch of Jake screamed to fight back, but he caught his daughter's gaze again. She beamed up at him, her unwavering belief like a lighthouse in a storm. And in that moment, Jake understood. It wasn't just about him or his dreams. It was about something greater, their shared future. Together. As the flicker of optimism spread through the crowd, a familiar face emerged from the throng. His neighbor, Mrs. Carter, an elderly woman who had always watched over the kids, stepped forward. "Jake, if you need help, we're with you." One by one, voices joined in, echoing her support. Together, they began to chant, "We believe." But before they could build on that momentum, a loud crash pierced through the air. Jake's stomach dropped as he turned to the source of the commotion, dread spilling into his veins. When he saw what had happened, he realized the battle for his dreams was just beginning. What had shattered? What new challenge lay ahead? The answers waited just beyond the horizon. The crowd's cheer abruptly fell silent, stunned by the sound of metal meeting concrete. A vendor's cart had tipped over, spilling countless bottles of soda across the ground, sending a cascade of energy drinks rolling away in confusion, like a miniature avalanche. The vendor himself scrambled, trying to salvage what he could, but the scene had already captured everyone's attention. Jake's heart raced as he saw a group of teenagers leaping away from the mess, their laughter quickly replaced by cautious whispers. He could almost feel their collective anxiety mixing with his own. The moment of hope he had built began to feel fragile, like a house of cards teetering at the edge of collapse. He stepped off the platform, eyes darting through the crowd, looking to recover that fleeting momentum. Diana tugged at his sleeve, her little voice cutting through the chaos. "Daddy, it's just soda." She laughed, trying to lighten the mood, her innocent spirit shining brightly in the murkiness of doubt. "Yeah, it's just soda," Jake echoed, though he wasn't sure if he was convincing himself or her. But he paused, taking in the scene of small disasters around them. One overturned cart could represent more than just congestion at the festival. It felt like a metaphor for everything he was facing. Just then, Mrs. Carter elbowed her way through the crowd, determined and fiery. "Crisis or not, let us clean this up," she declared, her voice strong despite her age. Others began to rally around her, stepping forward to help the vendor gather his belongings. Jake felt a spark of inspiration. "See, we can do this together," he exclaimed, raising his voice over the din as people paused to look back at him. "This community doesn't just talk. We act." The crowd began to respond, mirroring the enthusiasm that Mrs. Carter had sparked. They swept in as a unit, working in tandem, grabbing bottles and lifting the cart back upright. With every small act of cooperation, the energy in the air shifted, lessening the tightness in Jake's chest. Hope began to battle fear once more. "Let us keep that spirit alive," he shouted, willing them to remember what they were fighting for. Let us build something better. The teenagers who had initially distanced themselves from the chaos now found themselves laughing again, lending hands to the volunteers. Even Jake's brother shifted from skepticism to a small hint of a smile as he joined the effort, lending his strength to help. As the festival resumed its rhythm, the remnants of the chaos fell away. The music swelled once more, and laughter threaded through the crowd. Jake looked around and felt the warmth of his daughter's small hand holding tightly to his. It was more than just a reminder of what he fought for. It was a call to action. "Thank you, everyone," he called out, looking at the faces around him. "We rise together. If we can clean up a mess, imagine what we can create." His call for unity rippled through the crowd like a wave. They were beginning to see that together, they could overcome more than just spilled soda. They could fight for their dreams. But just as the festival reached a fever pitch, a voice sliced through the celebration, filled with urgency. "We need to talk about the actions from the city council." Two officials stepped into the crowd and everyone went still. Jake's heart sank again. What now? What new hurdle was barreling toward them? As he caught his daughter's anxious gaze, he braced himself for the next revelation that might change everything. Jake's stomach knotted as the officials took their stands at the edge of the crowd, their demeanor grave. The joy that had spread like wildfire moments ago felt like a distant memory. Whispers unfurled among festival goers, shadows creeping in where there had been laughter. "Do you think it's about the new housing developments?" Jake heard someone murmur nearby. Another voice joined in, tinged with fear. "What if they're cutting funding for the park?" Diana tugged on his arm, her bright eyes darkening with worry. "Daddy, what are they saying?" He knelt down, meeting her gaze and forced a smile. "Let us listen, sweetheart. They might tell us something important." But inside, he wished he could shield her from the world's heavy burdens as he stood. The officials quieted the crowd. One of them, a tall woman with glasses, cleared her throat. "Thank you all for your patience. We know the festival is an important event for our community, but we need to address some critical changes coming from the city council. First and foremost, we're exploring massive funding cuts that could affect local projects." A wave of gasps cut through the crowd as people exchanged concerned looks. Jake felt a hot rush of anger bubbling up. "What do you mean local projects? This is our home." The official continued, seemingly unfazed. "We're prioritizing the subway expansion over smaller programs. This may lead to fewer resources for our parks, community centers, and festivals like this one." Diana's small hand slipped from Jake's grip, as if the weight of the news alone was enough to ground her. He could see her fear reflected back at him, just as sharp and vivid as the moment when he realized the local projects provided comfort and support for people like them. "I'm sure there are alternatives," Jake blurted out. "What about community feedback? We can find ways to fund both." "Sir," the other official interjected, "these decisions are already made. We need to consider the city's growth, and that means some sacrifices." His heart raced, anger coursing through him like fire. This wasn't just about funding. This was about the very spirit of their community being stripped away in the name of progress. Around him, voices began to rise, some in anger, others in fear. "We need our park. We need our community," shouted a voice from the back. The sound of 100 hearts beating in unison filled the air, a surge of dissent that couldn't be ignored. "Listen," Jake shouted, suddenly feeling the urge to self-advocate for the future of the place he loved. "We can't let them take this from us. We have the power to fight for our community." The crowd's energy shifted again, fueled by a growing sense of urgency. He could feel it building, their shared frustration, fear, and hope swirling like a storm ready to unleash its power. As the crowd began to rally, Jake looked at Diana, whose eyes now shone not with fear, but with determination. He wrapped an arm around her, bolstering her spirit in the face of uncertainty. Just as hope began to spark anew within the sea of voices, the officials' grim faces hardened, preparing to respond. "We understand your feelings, but the city's decision is final." Jake felt that familiar tightening in his chest return. This was far from over. They had a battle ahead, and he could feel the stakes rising. "Will you stand up for your community's voice?" he called out, meeting eyes with his neighbors, imploring them to fight beside him. The response echoed through the crowd like a thunderous drum roll, rattling in collective resolve. But even as he felt the power of the crowd around him, dread knotted in his gut. What would it take to transform this moment into something lasting? What sacrifices would have to be made? As the air grew heavy with anticipation, he knew they were on the brink of something crucial. They had tapped into a shared energy strong enough to create change, but the question remained. In the face of the city's indifference, would they muster the courage to unleash that power? Each heartbeat felt charged with possibility, and just as another voice began to rise, Jake steadied himself for the fight ahead. Would they unite or fracture under the weight of the world's challenges? Jake's voice echoed in his ears as the crowd began to respond, their chants rising like a tide. "We won, back down," echoed back to him, a chorus filled with fierce determination. It felt as if the festival itself was pulsing with life, not just balloons and laughter, but a community standing at a crossroads. Diana squeezed his hand tightly, her small fingers digging in, half from courage and half from the uncertainty around them. They exchanged glances. Her eyes sparkled with the fire of rebellion. "Daddy, what do we do now?" she asked, her voice barely above the chaos. Jake took a deep breath, a wave of responsibility washing over him. "We keep fighting, sweetheart. We show them how much this means to us." With renewed energy, he turned to face the officials again. They stood defiant, preventing any wavering in their decision. Their indifference felt like an anchor trying to drag the community down. Without a plan, Jake knew they were at risk of being drowned in that sea of ignorance. "Let us organize," he yelled to the crowd. "Let us meet tomorrow at the park, plan a protest. The more of us, the stronger our voice." Cheers erupted around him, a result of combined hope and frustration, echoing in waves through the festival grounds. Their shared fears were turning into a technological symphony of ideas and determination. People began to huddle together, forming small circles, debating strategies, while others began reaching out to friends and neighbors, spreading the word about the gathering. Jake felt a sense of unity breathing life into their resolve. He spotted friends and neighbors among the throng. Mrs. Thompson from 2 houses down, clapping her hands together in fervor, and Danny, the local young artist known for painting the park's murals, already sketching ideas for banners. The storm of action was beginning to take shape, and each face contributed to the vision of what they wanted to protect. Yet, amid this upwelling of energy, doubt threaded through Jake's mind. Would it be enough? How could a handful of voices be heard against the weight of city decisions that had already been made? He looked down at Diana, a reminder of why this fight mattered. It wasn't just about a park. It was about the essence of their lives, a place where memories grew and celebrations thrived as the sun dipped lower, casting a golden hue over the festival site. The officials began to retreat, clips of their walkaway growing quieter while the crowd remained. Jake felt a moment of stillness, a chance to reflect on the broader picture. This was just the beginning. "Listen up," he called, holding his arm up for attention. "This isn't just about us. Families are relying on this space, the kids who play tag, the parents who meet for coffee. Let us band together. We will create a petition, get the word out on social media. But we need all of you to show up." Cheers again erupted, resonating with his call to action. Yet the serious undertones of fear rippled beneath. They needed not just courage but a plan that could rally more than just passion. Just then, an older man stepped forward, his brow knotted with concern. "What if they ignore us? What then?" Jake paused, the man's question hitting him hard. Deep down he knew this fight wouldn't be easy. But what choice did they have? "Then we keep fighting until they listen. It's our home, our voices." With each word, he felt a surge of confidence rise. The truth was, behind every decision, there were lives affected. They weren't faceless numbers on a budget sheet. As twilight settled over the crowd, illuminating the faces of neighbors, Jake felt their collective heartbeat, quickening a united front forged in the spirit of community. "Tomorrow, let us make our stand," Jake shouted, a sense of urgency fueling him. "Together, let us show the city how much we care." Cheers filled the dusk air once more. The movement was igniting, with Jake at its center, feeling the weight of responsibility shift. But would they be prepared to face the challenges ahead? As the crowd dispersed, Jake caught a glimpse of Diana, determination, shining bright in her eyes. Yet, a flicker of uncertainty lingered. The fight for their home had just begun. But were they ready for the unseen battles that lay ahead? Or would the struggle reveal deeper fractures within their community? Dawn broke over the park, bathing everything in a soft, golden light. Jake arrived early, his heart racing with anticipation. The grassy expanse, usually filled with children playing and families enjoying weekends, felt heavier today. It was a battleground marked by invisible stakes, and he could almost hear its plea for help. Diana had insisted on coming along. She held onto his hand, swinging it like they were just out for a walk instead of gearing up for something monumental. "Are we really going to change anything, Daddy?" she asked, her voice a mix of excitement and uncertainty. He knelt down and looked into her wide eyes. "We'll try, and together we can do anything." As others slowly trickled in, Jake's nerves began to settle. He spotted Danny already setting up a tent adorned with colorful banners. "We care about our park. Read one." Beside him, Mrs. Thompson was organizing stacks of flyers. The excitement, mingled with palpable anxiety, surged through the crowd. "Good morning, everyone," Jake called, raising his voice to overcome the chatter. As heads turned, he saw familiar faces. Neighbors, friends, newcomers ready to join the fight. "Today is the day we show how much this place means to us. We're here not just for ourselves, but for every single person who has ever found joy here." Cheers echoed around him again, a supportive chorus firing up their spirits. But beneath the surface, Jake could feel the weight of doubt pressing in on him. What if their voices were drowned out? What if the city turned a blind eye? He shook the thought from his mind and took a deep breath, focusing on the faces around him. "We have a plan," he announced. "We'll gather signatures for the petition, and I want each of you to share your stories on social media. Tell everyone what this park means to you." With that, small groups dispersed, some wandering off to talk to strangers, others passionately rallying supporters near the park entrance. Diana ran off with Danny, eager to help with the banners. She was a whirlwind of energy and hope, her youthful belief lighting a spark in each person she encountered. As the sun climbed higher, its heat began to mingle with the growing fervor of the crowd. Jake moved through the throngs of people, witnessing firsthand the connecting threads of their shared memories. An elderly man remembered his children climbing trees. A young couple recounted their first date under the park's oak. Each story wove into a larger narrative, recycling Jake's initial fear into collective determination. Suddenly, there was a commotion near the entrance. Jake rushed over, piercing through the gathering. A small group of city officials had arrived, their appearances stark against the vibrant backdrop of the park. The air shifted, tension rising like a wave. "Excuse us," one of the officials shouted, trying to maintain control as the crowd swarmed around them. "We're here to address some concerns." The crowd burst into a wave of voices, a tempest of disbelief and anger. "What concerns?" "It's our community," Jake yelled, feeling his own voice slice through the noise. He stepped forward, his heart pounding. "Why don't you listen to us?" he demanded. The silence that followed was thick, charged with anticipation. For a moment, Jake sensed both hope and fear coiling together in a fragile truce. Then, from the back, Diana's small voice piped up, "Are you here to take our park away?" Her question hung in the air, heavy and bright. Jake's heart sank. He turned, half expecting the officials to dismiss her. Instead, they paused, their expressions momentarily faltering. Maybe this was the moment where everything could change, but would they listen? Or were they ready to fight back? Jake felt the collective heartbeat of the crowd steady, a tremor of uncertainty blending with the reaffirmed resolve. What would it take to be heard? Would they rally even tighter, or shatter beneath the pressure? Jake held his breath, waiting for the officials to respond. It was a moment suspended in time, with uncertainty dancing within the crowd. Diana's innocent question echoed in his mind, amplifying the stakes of their gathering. The crowd shifted uneasily, eyes flickering from the officials to Jake, waiting for him to lead them through the next step. One of the officials finally spoke, their tone tempered with an air of authority mixed with genuine curiosity. No one is taking your park. Not if we can help it. But there are financial concerns and plans for other developments in the area. They glanced around, making brief eye contact with the faces that made up the passionate crowd. The murmurs grew louder, a sea of mixed emotions swirling. Hope battled skepticism. Jake felt the heat rise in his cheeks. This park isn't just a piece of land, he shouted, pushing through the frustration in his chest. It's our community's heart. It's where we laugh, play, and grow. We're not going to let it be lost to numbers and plans that don't include us. Diana tugged at his shirt, her voice barely above a whisper but filled with determination. Can we show them, Daddy? Can we make them see? Jake nodded, kneeling down to meet her gaze. We will find a way. But we need everyone here, he said, looking at the crowd. We need to unite. We can share our stories, show them how we feel. If they hear us, maybe they'll understand. More people chimed in, sharing snippets of their memories, the sounds rising into an unyielding wave of unity. Jake felt that familiar spark growing stronger around him. With each shared experience, he saw the officials' initial confidence begin to wane. They now stood there, listening more intently, brows furrowing as the tide of emotion swelled. Let us organize a presentation, someone yelled, excitement pulsing through the crowd. We'll bring every story, every memory together. Exactly, Jake replied, wishing he had thought of it himself. We can showcase what this park means to us. Together, we'll make sure they can't ignore our voices. Diana bounced on her feet, vibrant energy radiating from her. And we can make a video, she shouted. Everyone loves videos. Jake chuckled at her enthusiasm, fueled by the fervor surrounding them. You're right, sweetheart. We will record our stories. We'll show everyone about our park and why it matters. One by one, faces brightened with renewed purpose. Hands shot up. People proposed ideas for the video, plans for engaging the community further. The chatter became an intricate dance of determination, creative spirits alive and well. But even as the plans took shape, Jake couldn't shake the worry sitting heavy in his stomach. Would it be enough? Would their presentation convince the officials? Uncertainty loomed, but he pushed it aside. For now, he fed off the collective energy of the gathering, their hope igniting a fire within him. Minutes turned into hours filled with laughter, painting signs and sharing stories, each contribution helping solidify that sense of community. By the time the sun began sinking in the sky, the park was transformed into a colorful tapestry of voices united. Yet as darkness crept in, casting long shadows over their work, Jake noticed the officials stepping to the side, their huddled conversation earnest. What were they deciding? An ominous feeling knotted in his gut. Do you think they will help us? Diana asked, sensing her father's tension. Jake paused, remembering the warmth of the day. We've shown them who we are. Now we just need to hope they listen. As he watched the officials gesturing, his heart raced, a mix of hope and dread. Would they embrace this tide of community spirit? Or would it all slip away? Just then, the leading official stepped forward, a serious expression on their face. We'd like you all to join us for a discussion about the future of the park. Jake's pulse quickened. What would they say? Would this be the breakthrough they needed? The air was thick with anticipation as the crowd drew closer, hearts pounding in unison. Jake felt a weight in his chest, matching the mixture of hope and anxiety around him. With every step the official took towards the microphone, the whispers faded into a tense silence. Diana grasped his hand tightly, her small fingers a reminder of why this fight was worth every ounce of effort. Thank you all for gathering here tonight, the official began, scanning the sea of faces filled with longing. We understand that this park is not just land. It's a lifeline, a gathering place, the heart of your community. We acknowledge the passion you've shown today. Jake could sense the crowd leaning forward, waiting for the next words that could shape their future. There are funding challenges we're facing, and plans that have already been initiated. But we also have a responsibility to the community. We want to collaborate. A ripple of murmurs surged through the gathering. Some breathed sighs of relief while others exchanged wary glances. Could this really be a shared path forward? But we need you to help us too, the official continued, their voice steady but urgent. If this community can show us a united front support, engagement, a viable plan, we can work together to protect this park. Jake felt a sudden rush of adrenaline. What do you need from us? He called out, breaking the momentary haze of awe that followed the official's words. Real suggestions, feasibility studies, and a strong commitment from you all, the official replied, emphasizing the word strong. What can this park become with your input? How can it thrive rather than just survive? Diana's eyes sparkled with ideas. We can have events. We can have movie nights and sports leagues. Her enthusiasm spread like wildfire. What if we make it a place for local artists to show their work? Community garden? Others chimed in rapidly with ideas. Jake felt the energy shift, transforming from a fear of loss to a renewed sense of purpose. We can form committees, organize events, gather data, he added, driven by the roar of originality igniting in everyone around him. If we show them we're willing to actively participate, support will follow. Yes, cheered a voice from the back. Let us create a proposal that speaks for our community. A vision of what we want to see here. They began to huddle, voices overlapping as they brainstormed passionately about the park's potential. Ideas bounced around like shooting stars, each one brighter than the last, illuminating their connected hopes more than ever before. But amid the excitement was still the nagging sense of doubt. Could they really pull this off? Could they come up with something compelling enough to capture the officials' hearts and minds? As the crowd rallied together, Jake caught the officials exchanging uncertain glances. We will guide you in this process, the leading official said, cautiously optimistic yet aware of the uphill battle they faced. But no, it will take hard work. A lot of it. Jake nodded, determined. We're ready for that. We're not just going to stand by and watch. This is our home. As they surged into action, the energy felt electric. Ideas flowed like a river, with laughter interspersed between heavy discussions. The night lay before them, ripe with potential. Yet, as they gathered their notes and formed groups to discuss next steps, Jake's mind couldn't help but wander to the wider implications of their fight. What would it take to truly protect their park and their community? With a heart overflowing with hope but gripped by the gravity of their task, he looked out over his friends and neighbors. Together we'll create something amazing. But what happens if they don't believe we're enough? The question hung in the air, heavy with uncertainty, leaving him steeling himself for whatever challenges lay ahead. As the crowd broke into small groups, the hum of excitement mingled with the night air. Jake felt a sense of urgency pressing down on him. He could see Diana animatedly discussing ideas with a few neighbors, her passion infectious. She radiated hope, and Jake couldn't help but feel that they were on the brink of something special. Yet, in the back of his mind lingered that question. What if it wasn't enough? Okay, everyone, let us bring it in. Jake called, waving his arms to gather the groups. His voice, though confident, trembled slightly with the weight of responsibility. Hands lowered and heads turned, all eyes on him. We need to channel this energy into something tangible. We have to show them that we truly care about this park. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd, their collective desire palpable. Jake glanced around, his gaze landing on the official who'd spoken earlier. The official's nod encouraged him. What we need is a vision. Let us outline exactly what we want this park to be, Jake suggested, pushing himself to speak clearly. Diana mentioned events, but let us go deeper. How can we create a space that highlights our culture, our community? Diana stepped forward, eyes shining. What if we include educational programs? Workshops for kids in art, gardening, even sustainability. We could partner with local schools. Imagine the impact. The crowd perked up at her words, flowing with enthusiasm as neighbors began throwing around other ideas. It was as if a dam of creativity had burst open, releasing everything they'd been holding inside. Jake felt exhilaration mixed with a touch of fear, but it only fueled him further. With every idea, though, he worried. Could they really make this happen? Hours passed, ideas jotted down on papers, sketches made on napkins. Laughter echoed in bursts of joy. Yet, just as quickly, whispers of doubt crept in. Are we ready to put this all into action? What if we put our hearts into this and it's still isn't enough? A voice piped up from the edges of the group. Jake recognized it as Melissa, a single mother who often brought her kids to the park. Her soft expression mirrored the uncertainty in his heart. Jake swallowed hard, remembering how desperate the situation felt under the dim glow of the streetlights. I get that fear, he said, locking eyes with her. But if we don't try, we'll never know what we could achieve together. We have to present something that shows the city our love for this place. They need to see how much it means to us. Nods of agreement bounced around, but the heavy silence that followed felt thick. Unsure glances passed as the gravity of Jake's words settled like morning fog. Let us brainstorm some actionable steps, Diana suggested, rallying the energy back into focus. We can meet next week with a draft proposal. Each group can take one part of the plan and have it ready. There was murmuring, heads nodding, excitement reigniting the momentum. Yet underlying it all remained the question of whether they could truly capture what they all felt in their hearts in a proposal that would sway the city officials. All right, let us split up again and get started. Jake clapped his hands together. As the groups dispersed into a flurry of light chatter, he spotted a few familiar somber faces hanging back, faces that mirrored his own worries. As he moved to join a group, he couldn't shake the lingering concern that their passion might not be enough to fend off the challenges ahead. The night faded, laughter and conversation tangling in the warm air, but the doubts remained. He thought again about Melissa's words, what if the fight for the park was only the beginning? Feeling a sudden surge of determination, Jake turned to run to the crowd. Let us remember, what happens here could shape everything for years to come. If we don't fight for this, who will? And with that rallying cry, the energy surged, but Jake's heart remained heavy. But what if fighting isn't enough? As the stars twinkled over the park, Jake couldn't help but wonder what they would ultimately discover in their quest. Both about the park and about themselves. The sun rose slowly, golden rays spilling into the park, illuminating a sea of faces cheering and shouting in anticipation. Jake stood at the forefront, taking in the magnitude of the crowd he'd gathered. His heart pounded with a mixture of pride and anxiety. They had spent weeks rallying support, organizing ideas, and dreaming of the future together. Today was a testament to their love for their community and the park they fought so hard to protect. Diana stood by his side, her small hands swinging with excitement, her innocent joy a vibrant light against the seriousness of the occasion. Are you ready, Daddy? She asked, eyes sparkling like 1,000 shining stars. Jake bent down, cupping her round cheeks with his hands. With you next to me? I sure am. He felt a few jitters fade as he caught her infectious spirit. After everything they had faced, today would be a turning point, a moment of connection, hope, and rekindling a spirit that soothed those worn hearts as the gathered crowd surged forward. Jake spotted the city officials standing at their makeshift podium, faces tense but softening at the sight of the community standing tall. Welcome everyone, one of them began, their voice steady. We're here to listen. A wave of emotion washed over Jake. They had crafted a proposal filled with heart, dreams, and the stories of real lives that were impacted by the park. Each voice mattered, and that realization resonated in the air. He took a deep breath, knowing this was his moment. Thank you for being here, he called out, stepping forward, feeling the pulse of emotion swell. We want to share what this park means to us. It's not just grass and trees. It's our past, our present, our future. The crowd erupted into cheers, energy radiating through the air like a fire igniting. He glanced at Diana, who beamed up at him. Filled with pride, his heart swelled. This park is where friendships blossomed, laughter echoed, and lives were intertwined. He continued, his voice firm. We need it to thrive, not just survive. As he spoke, neighbors took turns at the microphone, sharing snippets of their experiences. Mrs. Carter spoke about gathering the children for picnics. Danny shared his artistic dreams of muraling the park with stories long lost in whispers, and many others joined in, building a tapestry of connection that encapsulated the essence of their spirit. Jake felt the weight of worry lifting, replaced by a wave of strength pulsing through the crowd. Hope echoed in the murmurs of agreement. Their passion began to penetrate the hardened walls of bureaucracy, illuminating possibilities that even he had once doubted. Just then, the city officials exchanged glances. There was something new in their expressions: curiosity, perhaps even respect. Jake's heart raced again. The lead official held out a hand. "We are here to listen, but we also need to collaborate. The ambitions for development are alive, but we don't want to erase the community's heart in the process. Can we solidify a plan together that benefits everyone?" The collective gasp from the crowd felt electric. This was not what they had anticipated. Jake glanced at Diana, who caught the expression of hope flooding through her face, reflecting back at him. They could actually reach a solution, a future shaped together. "Yes," Jake proclaimed, feeling tears prick his eyes. "Let us do it together. Let us form committees to keep the ideas flowing, the events, educational programs, even town gatherings. Let South make this park a true hub of life." Cheers erupted once more, each voice a promise echoing into the early afternoon sky. The city officials softened further, nodding with understanding. Felt like everything was falling into place. In that moment, as the sun dipped low, Jake spotted his brother in the crowd, not far from Mrs. Carter's pride-filled smile and Danny excitedly discussing mural ideas. Their eyes locked, and he caught a glimpse of a shared history, their childhoods intruding upon the present, reminding him that bringing this park back to life was not a solitary fight. It was one they could face together. With a nod, Jake walked towards him, the air pulsing with hope and promise. "Let us talk," he suggested, his voice softer this time. "We can make this work." A mixture of emotions played across his brother's face, and for the first time in years, he could see a hint of something like acceptance as the crowd began to converge towards a shared vision. Jake could feel the fabric of the community sealing itself tighter, knitting friendships and futures together. The weight that had sat heavy in his chest for so long began to lift. This was more than just a fight for a park. It was a fight for the essence of family, unity, and connection, the very heartbeat of their lives. As people gathered to discuss plans, laughter mingled with the sunset warmth, bringing forth a sense of hope that felt almost tangible. Jake knew then that this was only the beginning. Together, they breathe life into their cherished park and weave it into the very spirit of their community. With Diana beside him, the sun setting in a splendor of orange and pink, Jake stood taller than ever. It was a moment not just of survival, but the birth of a thriving future. He had faced darkness and uncertainty, but now, standing in the glow of renewed connection, he felt invincible. The community had come together, and nothing could break that bond. Now more than ever, he knew that bold steps could lead them anywhere. If you loved this inspiring story, now is the time to act. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories that will move you. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us grow stronger together. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this. Ending your voices matter. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation, because together, we can change the world. You need to support the channel today. Don't wait not even one more second.